Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu versus Judo, Kyokushin versus Muay Thai, Sumo vs Judo, Kyokushin versus Drunken Fist, Pro Wrestling versus Boxing, Pro Wrestling versus Kyokushin, Kickboxing versus Muay Thai, Muay Thai versus Nihon Kenpo. This time, we will introduce some of the most representative cross-style matches in modern Japanese martial arts history, from before MMA became established in Japan. Among Japanese martial arts fans, both past and present, the question, which martial art or combat sport is the strongest, has never ceased to be debated. At the root of this question lies the spirit of the samurai of the Sengoku period, when life and death combat was a reality. On the battlefield, a single moment of carelessness could mean death. Warriors were therefore expected to master a wide range of martial skills, bow, spear, sword, dagger, and jujutsu, so they could respond to any situation. The acquisition of comprehensive combat ability was simply common sense for a samurai. When the age of civil war came to an end and the peaceful Edo period began, martial arts designed for killing gradually lost their immediate necessity. In their place, they transformed into disciplines focused on spiritual cultivation and technical refinement. Various schools of kenjutsu, jujutsu, and spear technique developed independently. Although life and death duels largely disappeared in this era, inter-school matches and dojo challenges, dojo yaburi, were still fought, with the honor and survival of entire schools at stake. The competitive spirit and pride of the warrior class remained very much alive. That spirit continued into modern Budo after the Meiji period. Arts such as Judo, Kendo, Karate, and Aikido each established their own philosophies and systems, yet shared a common ethos of striving to become stronger and to reach greater heights. Even in modern MMA in Japan, matches are often more than individual contests. When fighters represent different martial backgrounds, bouts fought for the prestige of their respective styles generate excitement far beyond that of ordinary fights. A prime example is the match between Royce Gracie and Olympic judo gold medalist Hidehiko Yoshida. Thus, Japanese martial arts, while changing form with the times, have continued to live on as a culture that relentlessly pursues the essence of strength. In Japan, the symbol of the strongest has shifted with each era, from sumo to judo, professional wrestling, karate, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and finally to mixed martial arts. By introducing epoch-making cross-style bouts, we will trace this history step by step. Each match carries its own drama, though here they will be presented only in brief. The earliest recorded instance of an Interstyle bout in Japan dates to 1854, when Matthew C. Perry made his second visit to Japan. At a celebratory gathering marking the conclusion of the Japan-US Treaty of Amity, American sailors, some with experience in wrestling and boxing, reportedly challenged a group of Japanese sumo wrestlers. Among those who accepted the challenge were the Ozeki Koyanagi Tsunekichi and the powerful wrestler Shiramayumi. More than a dozen American sailors stepped onto the dohyo one after another, but they were said to have been completely overmatched by the sumo wrestlers. Although Shiramayumi reportedly suffered a bloody nose after taking punches, he nevertheless demonstrated overwhelming strength. 3 more Americans, 2 wrestlers and 1 boxer, were likewise defeated, and this first Interstyle contest supposedly ended in a complete victory for the Japanese side. Subsequent matches with foreigners, encounters with foreigners continued. In 1861, a British man challenged a wrestler during a sumo exhibition and was knocked off the ring by sandanmi-ranked Tokitsukaze Sokichi with headbutts and thrusts. That same year, a Frenchman said to be 240 centimeters tall was thrown by a wrestler in Yokohama. The scene became popular as a woodblock print titled, "The Pride of Yokohama Wrestlers." The small wrestler, Ryogoku Kajinosuke, was said to have defeated a 2-meter-tall Indian fighter with a back throw. In 1879, Tomonohiro Bueman faced an American boxer visiting Japan in a sumo match held before the emperor. After a fierce fight mixing punches and grappling techniques, he won by throwing his opponent with his signature move, Takamuso. In 1898, Onishiki Taroichi, a wrestler from Osaka Sumo, competed in the United States and reportedly knocked out his opponent with a throat grip. In 1914, Yokozuna Tachiyama Miniman received an offer to face Europe's strongest wrestler, Georg Hackenschmidt. But the outbreak of World War I prevented the match from taking place. However, some historians question whether these were genuine interstyle contests. In 1854, during negotiations for the Japan-US Treaty of Amity, the shogunate dispatched sumo wrestlers to Yokohama at Perry's request. According to the Tokugawa Jiki, dozens of wrestlers carried rice bales and chickens for the Americans, and the strength of Koyanagi and Shiramayumi attracted attention. It is also recorded that when sailors challenged Koyanagi to sumo, he defeated 3 in succession to great applause. Yet the American account, narrative of the expedition of an American squadron to the China Seas and Japan, shows little interest in sumo itself and contains no detailed description of such bouts. In Japan, the event was later dramatized as an interstyle fight against boxers and wrestlers, embellished in kawaraban, early news sheets, and post-war publications. Some scholars argue that it was merely a brief exhibition by sumo wrestlers rather than a true cross-disciplinary contest. At the time, Japan, aside from limited exceptions, maintained a policy of national seclusion. Perry's arrival, backed by military force, pressured Japan to open its ports. In 1853, Perry's fleet of black ships appeared at Uraga, delivering a decisive shock to the Tokugawa regime, which had maintained relative isolation. Many Japanese who had regarded Westerners as barbarians, Iteki, felt fear and humiliation at their overwhelming military power. This led to widespread anxiety that the shogunate might not be able to defend Japan and contributed to the rise of the ideology of Sonojoi. Revere the emperor, expel the barbarians. The belief strengthened that Japan was a divine land that must not submit to foreign powers. The 1854 sumo interstyle match occurred amid these treaty negotiations. At Perry's request, the shogunate had wrestlers perform heavy labor. Afterward, as a gesture of friendship, they staged a sumo exhibition. When wrestlers such as Ozeki Koyanagi Tsunekichi appeared, hoisting massive rice bales and reportedly defeating American sailors, the story gave common people a sense of exhilaration. It was told as a symbolic moment in which Japan refused to yield to foreigners and displayed its national dignity. Although the shogunate likely intended the event as a diplomatic goodwill gesture, the public perceived it differently. Kawaraban exaggerated the story, reporting that Japanese wrestlers had beaten American sailors. This popular pride and excitement contributed to the emotional soil from which the Joi movement would later grow. In other words, the Yokohama Sumo exhibition came to symbolize the strength of the Japanese who repelled foreigners, serving as material that stirred anti-foreign sentiment. Personally, I do not believe that every interstyle bout involving sumo wrestlers of this era was pure exaggeration. However, it may be important to consider the historical context in which such stories were told and amplified. Hideo Sonobe is said to have traveled around the country placing prize money on herself, challenging practitioners of various weapons to mixed-style bouts and defeating them all. In May 1899, at the 4th Butoku Festival Grand Demonstration held at the Kyoto Butokuden, Sonobe caught the attention of the head of the Dai Nippon Butoku Kai, then the supreme authority overseeing Japanese martial arts. By the president's nomination, Sonobe was matched against Watanabe Nobori. Watanabe had served as head instructor at the Renpeikan, one of the three great Edo period Kenjutsu dojo in Edo during the late Tokugawa period. In Kyoto, he was said to have cut down opponents numerous times and was reputed to have been so formidable that even the Shinsengumi, who suppressed pro-imperial activists, feared him. He was regarded as a genuine master swordsman. Sonobe, a practitioner of the naginata, kept Watanabe's swordsmanship completely at bay and emerged victorious. Incidentally, Sonobe was a woman. When the Edo period ended, the Meiji era began. Japan dramatically shifted toward modernization, and the age when swords were necessary finally came to an end. During the Meiji period, full-scale Western-style boxing was introduced to Japan, and numerous mixed-style matches were held under the banner of Judo versus boxing. In 1909, a Kodokan disciple, Tsukanori Konno, a junior by 1 year to Kyuzo Mifune, who would later hold the highest rank of 10th Dan at the Kodokan, fought a British boxer in what was called a Juken match. A Juken match was a mixed bout between judo and boxing. Despite suffering severe injuries, including broken ribs, Kano won the match and became champion. Supporting this match was Kenji Kano, the nephew of Jigoro Kano, founder of Kodokan Judo. Kenji Kano would later be involved in the establishment of the Japan Professional Boxing Association. The roots of Japanese boxing, now considered the strongest nation in the lighter weight divisions and home to Naoya Inoue, widely regarded as one of the greatest pound-for-pound boxers in the world, can surprisingly be traced back to interstyle matches between judo and boxing. One of the three crows of the Kodokan, Mitsuyo Maeda, fought numerous mixed-style matches overseas and became known as Konde Koma. To demonstrate the prestige of Japanese judo, Maeda traveled throughout the United States, Europe, and Mexico, offering a $1,000 prize and defeating challengers one after another, including wrestlers and boxers. Around 1917 in Brazil, Maeda taught judo to Carlos Gracie. This instruction later became the catalyst for the birth of Gracie Jiu-Jitsu and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. In the 1920s, wrestler Santel visited Japan, and mixed matches were held between judoka and wrestlers. Judo suffered a crushing defeat, and Santel declared himself the judo champion. Afterward, the Kodokan prohibited further mixed-style matches with Santel. In 1929, the Waseda University judo team toured the United States, where they suffered defeat at the hands of wrestlers. The loss, in particular, left a deep impression on one of the team members, Hata, who came to view it as a serious issue. 2 years later, in 1931, Hata founded a wrestling club at Waseda University, together with several like-minded colleagues. This marked the starting point for the full-scale spread of wrestling in Japan. At the time, he was serving as a secretary to Jigoro Kano, dispatched by the Japan Amateur Athletic Association. Today, Japanese women's wrestling, especially known for producing champions such as Yoshida Saori, is one of the strongest and most dominant forces in the world. Like boxing, the roots of wrestling taking hold in Japan can surprisingly be traced back to interstyle matches with judo. In 1922, Motobu Choki, a karate practitioner from Okinawa, traveled to mainland Japan and was watching a Juken, judo versus boxing match held in Kyoto. Suddenly, he stepped into the ring and challenged a boxer himself. It is said that he knocked his opponent out with a single blow. At the time, karate, then known as Toad or Tang Hand, was not yet widely known on the Japanese mainland. When an account of this match was published in the September 1925 issue of the national magazine King, Motobu's martial reputation and the name of karate quickly spread throughout Japan. In later years, there was also a story that he sparred with boxing champion Piston Horiguchi, skillfully evaded his punches, and forced him to concede by thrusting his fist to his brow. Kenichi Sawai, who had studied classical Jiu-Jitsu and held the rank of 5th Dan in Kodokan Judo, traveled to Manchuria in 1931. While in Beijing, he sought a match with Wang Xiangjai, the founder of Dachengquan and widely regarded as one of China's leading martial artists. However, Sawai was completely outmatched and decided to become his disciple. According to one account, the previously mentioned wrestler Hata also attempted to test his skills against Wang, but was similarly unable to prevail. Although Wang did not initially permit Sawai to enter as a student, he eventually accepted him due to Sawai's persistence and sincerity. After the end of World War II, Sawai returned to Japan and in 1947, with Wang's permission, founded Taiki Shisei Kenpo, Taiki-ken. He later developed close relationships with figures such as So-ne-chu, the teacher of Mazoyama, Tatsukuma Ushijima, and Mazoyama himself. In particular, he engaged in significant technical exchange with the Kyokushin school. Around 1934, Morihei Ueshiba, the founder of Aikido, met the judo practitioner Kenshiro Abe on a train. Ueshiba asked Abe to grip his little finger, and in an instant, he reportedly pinned Abe down on the spot. Abe was a highly skilled judoka who in 1936 defeated Kimura Masahiko in a 5th Dan selected tournament hosted by the Imperial Household Police of the Ministry of the Imperial Household. In 1939, at a martial arts demonstration held in Shinjing, Manchukuo, Ueshiba threw down the former Sekiwake sumo wrestler Tenryu Saburo, who had challenged him to a test of strength. At the time, Tenryu was 34 years old, 187 centimeters tall, and weighed 116 kilos, height and weight from his active career. Ueshiba, by contrast, was 55 years old, 156 centimeters tall, and weighed 75 kilos, height and weight from when he was 20. Usually it would probably turn out like this. Among martial artists, Ueshiba stands out for the sheer number of anecdotes involving cross-style challenge matches. In 1941, Ushijima Tatsukuma, the mentor of Kimura Masahiko, faced practitioners of the Chinese grappling art Shuai Jiao in Beijing. There are conflicting accounts regarding the outcome. Some say he won, others say he lost, but it appears to have been a friendly match. After retiring, former judo champion Kimura Masahiko competed in professional judo, which had been launched in 1950 by his teacher Ushijima Tatsukuma. In interviews conducted about this era by writer Masuda Toshinari, Kimura shared the following episode. At the end of regional tours, Kimura would invite open challenges from the audience asking, "Is there anyone who would like to challenge me?" At one such event, a former professional sumo wrestler and a top-class all-Japan-level judoka stepped forward. However, both were decisively defeated by Kimura's junior associate, who accompanied him, Oyama Masutatsu, the future founder of Kyokushin karate, not yet formally established at the time. In 1951, while in Brazil, Kimura Masahiko fought Helio Gracie. He won the match using his signature Gyaku Udagarami, entangled armlock. The technique later became known worldwide as the Kimura lock, forever bearing his name. In his autobiography Waga Judo, Kimura reflected, "I wondered whether there was any Japanese judoka who possessed such fighting spirit. I felt that Helio's fighting spirit was a mirror of the Japanese soul. Even though I won the match, when it came to sheer tenacity and obsession with victory, I was the one who lost." In 1954, in a professional wrestling match, Masahiko Kimura faced Rikidozan. Rikidozan was a wrestler whose style was based on Korea's traditional martial arts Airum and Japanese sumo. and he was a pioneer who established professional wrestling in Japan. The match took a one-sided turn when Rikidozan suddenly broke the pre-arranged outcome, book-breaking, ultimately claiming victory. Footage from the time shows Kimura visibly bewildered. Mazoyama, who admired Kimura like an older brother, reportedly swore revenge against Rikidozan for his underhanded tactics. However, mediation from figures in the underworld intervened, and the plan was abandoned. A true interstyle bout between them never materialized. From the 1950s to the 1970s, Sambo, developed in the Soviet Union based on Judo, challenged Japan under the banner of possessing greater combat effectiveness than Judo. In the Japan-Soviet matches of the 1960s, Isao Okano, a Tokyo Olympic gold medalist for Japan, suffered a decisive defeat against the Sambo practitioner Mishchenko, sending shockwaves through the Japanese judo world. Yasuhiro Yamashita, often regarded as the strongest judoka of the modern era, also faced a Sambo champion. In September 1976, at his alma mater, Tokai University, he fought two friendly matches, the first under Sambo rules, the second under Judo rules. His opponent was Vitaly Kuznetsov, an accomplished competitor with an Olympic silver medal and 2 World Championship runner-up titles in Judo, as well as 2 World Championships in Sambo. Yamashita reportedly won both matches. In 1964, promoter Osamu Noguchi organized a bout titled Muay Thai vs. Oyama, later Kyokushin Karate, at Lumpini Boxing Stadium in Thailand. Kenji Kurosaki, Tadashi Nakamura, and Akio Fujihira competed, with the Japanese side winning 2 out of 3 matches. This series of contests created a new trend emphasizing practical effectiveness, and in 1966, kickboxing was born in Japan. Under the guidance of Mazoyama, founder of Kyokushin Karate, a striking-centered full-contact and combat-oriented approach, considered unconventional in karate at the time, was established. Kurosaki, the only Japanese representative to lose in the Kyokushin vs. Muay Thai series, later stayed in the Netherlands for 11 months in 1966 at the invitation of Jan Plaas, who would become the first chairman of Kyokushin in Europe. Later, John Blooming would go on to become the most important figure in the Dutch combat sports world, a nation regarded as the strongest in kickboxing. The world-renowned elite kickboxing gyms, Majiro Gym, Chakuriki Dojo, and Vos Gym can all be said to trace their lineage back to John Blooming. After suffering what is regarded as Kyokushin's only defeat against Muay Thai, Kurosaki later founded a kickboxing gym and went on to train Toshio Fujiwara. In 1966, Sawamura Tadashi, a third dan practitioner of Goju Ryu Karate who had won the All Japan Student Karate Championship and was undefeated in 60 bouts, was scouted by Noguchi Osamu and transitioned to kickboxing. Sawamura went on to fight numerous fierce battles, and at the time in Japan, kickboxing and Sawamura were almost synonymous. In 1972, promoter Noguchi Osamu opened the Noguchi Kickboxing Gym on Ratchadamri Road in Bangkok. At the time, nationalism was on the rise in Thailand, while Japan was in the midst of its period of high economic growth. There was considerable resentment among some Thais toward Japanese who, backed by economic power, behaved arrogantly in the country. Amid student-led boycotts of Japanese products, Noguchi's remarks, such as claiming that kickboxing is vastly different from Muay Thai and several times more fierce and intense, further inflamed Thai nationalism. 3 bullets were fired into the gym. The following day, a group of protesters gathered, smashing the gym's large glass windows. In response, the Thai government deported Noguchi and his associates to Japan as individuals deemed a threat to public security, and the gym was shut down after just 1 week. Meanwhile, Fujiwara Toshio trained under Kurosaki Kenji and, in 1977, avenged his teacher's frustration by becoming the first foreign champion in the history of Rajadamnern Stadium. A high-ranking practitioner of Nippon Kempo, Igari Ganshu, knocked out unified Muay Thai champion Satanfa Sorprathip at Lumpini Stadium in the same year. In total, he scored knockout victories over 3 reigning Muay Thai champions. He also captured domestic kickboxing titles in 2 weight classes and won the WKA middleweight title, enjoying a successful career. This is a match of Nippon Kempo. Its punching technique is unique. Unlike boxing or karate, the fist is held vertically. This martial art has been adopted for hand-to-hand combat training in the Japan Self-Defense Forces. Watanabe Jiro, who came from a Nippon Kempo background, later became a world boxing champion. As mentioned earlier, Rikidozan, regarded as the father of Japanese professional wrestling, had as his top disciple Antonio Inoki. Inoki and New Japan Pro Wrestling popularized mixed-style bouts for the masses. Proclaiming that pro wrestling is the strongest, Inoki faced various martial artists, including judoka and karateka. Among these bouts, his 1976 match against Muhammad Ali became legendary. Ali's global fame brought an unprecedented level of attention compared to previous mixed-style fights. However, the match itself failed to mesh and proved extremely dull. The bout became defined by the image of a grounded Inoki versus a standing Ali, with neither able to secure a decisive advantage, ultimately ending in a draw. Before MMA was established as a sport, matchups between strikers and grapplers, especially Jiu-Jitsu practitioners, often fell into this kind of stalemate. In Japan, such a situation came to be known as the Inoki-Ali state. In 1980, overruling opposition from Kyokushin's founder Mazoyama, the strongest foreign fighter in Kyokushin history, Willie Williams, challenged Inoki. The match ended in a draw. Williams, along with Shigeru Oyama, Masoyama's close associate and Williams' teacher, and Yasuhiko Oyama, was expelled from Kyokushin. The Oyama brothers later founded USA Oyama Karate in the United States. Following these events, Kyokushin strictly prohibited interstyle matches. Audiences enjoyed the ambiguous boundary between real fights and scripted battles presented by New Japan Pro Wrestling, and professional wrestling became firmly established in Japan as entertainment. Japanese pro wrestling can broadly be divided into 2 styles. One centered on show-based entertainment like WWF or Lucha Libre, and another presented in a manner closer to legitimate competition. The latter style of professional wrestling that branched off from New Japan Pro Wrestling, presenting itself as closer in appearance to a real fight, was later carried on and further intensified in its realism by UWF and then inherited by Shuto, which became fully MMA, rings and pancrase. These organizations would go on to commit themselves to the emerging sport of MMA in Japan earlier and more deeply than any other traditional Japanese martial art. Here is a private Interstyle match said to have been held secretly by senior disciples of Masoyama against Taikikan, the art brought to Japan by Sawai Kenichi after studying what was regarded as one of China's highest-level martial arts systems. The man wearing a karategi is most likely Mitsuyo Shoki, the head of one of the largest present-day Kyokushin factions, the Matsui Group. He is going toe-to-toe with Matsui, who at the time was considered one of the top fighters of Kyokushin, then widely regarded as the pinnacle of Japanese striking martial arts. This bout was probably held within a few years before or after Matsui defeated Andy Hug of Switzerland, who later became a K1 champion, at the 4th Kyokushin World Tournament. It is said that Taikikan did not include fixed-form technique practice. Next is Yamaki Kenji, who won the super heavyweight division at the 6th World Tournament. Despite an overwhelming size disadvantage, he engages without hesitation. When I first heard the rumor that Yamaki had fought an Interstyle match against Taikiken, I assumed that Yamaki had won by an overwhelming knockout. Yamaki is the fighter who defeated Francisco Helio at the 5th World Tournament. Helio later knocked out the champion Andy Hug in the first round in his kickboxing debut. Chinese martial arts are often dismissed as theatrical or gimmicky, but could this not be one example showing that some are indeed the real thing? Incidentally, the referee was Hatsuo Royama, who studied under both Masoyama and Sawai Kenichi and became a senior disciple in both lineages. In 1992, Ichihara Inoki of the full-contact karate organization Daido Juku traveled to the Thailand-Myanmar border region and entered a Radway match on short notice, scoring a knockout victory. In 1993, Japan launched K1, a heavyweight tournament, later adding a middleweight division to determine the strongest stand-up striking style among kickboxing, karate, Muay Thai, Kung Fu, Taekwondo, and boxing. The inaugural champion was Branko Chikatic, a Shotokan karate stylist who transitioned to kickboxing at Chakuriki Gym. After him, the tournament became dominated by Dutch kickboxers such as Peter Aerts and Ernesto Hoost, marking the golden era of Dutch kickboxing supremacy. That same year in the United States, the Ultimate Fighting Championship UFC was born, an event asking the fundamental question: which martial art is the strongest under fewer rule restrictions? It marked the beginning of modern MMA. At the first tournament, Royce Gracie fought his way to a dominant victory, demonstrating the effectiveness of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to the world. The final was Royce Gracie versus Gerard Gordo, a Dutch fighter from a Kyokushin karate background. Among competitors that included a sumo wrestler, wrestlers, a boxer, and a taekwondo practitioner, the bout was, in a sense, a showdown between the grand disciples of Mitsuyo Maeda, Konde Koma, and Mas Oyama. After winning, Royce Gracie famously stated that his older brother, Rickson Gracie, was even stronger than he was. In Japan, although many classical jiu-jitsu schools had once existed, some were lost over time and others survived only in small lineages. After the war, the jiu-jitsu judo world became dominated almost entirely by Kodokan Judo. Originally a lethal art, jiu-jitsu had been adapted during the Edo period into arresting techniques. By removing techniques deemed too dangerous, it was introduced into educational settings, transformed into judo, and eventually elevated to an Olympic sport, spreading rapidly worldwide. Meanwhile, the intricate technical exchanges of groundwork were largely forgotten within its system. Ironically, the judo community and the Japanese martial arts world as a whole was later shocked by the emergence of a seemingly new art called Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which was in fact built upon techniques that had originally existed in Japan. In 1994, Japan's first modern MMA event, Veiled Tudo Japan Open 1994, was held, and Rickson Gracie, the very brother Royce had called stronger than himself, came to Japan. Rickson defeated Yasunori Nishiyoshi, founder of Wajutsu Keishukai, who was in the lineage of Masahiko Kimura, the man who had defeated Rickson's father, Helio Gracie, and who had established his system based on judo and full-contact karate. Rickson went on to defeat Japanese fighters one after another. Wajutsu Keishukai would later produce top MMA fighters such as Yushin Okami, one of the most successful Japanese fighters in UFC history. Yuki Nakai, from the Seven Imperial University's judo tradition, Shichite Judo, which preserved a technical system closest to original Jiu-Jitsu and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, was also defeated. Nakai would later become president of the Japan Shuto Association and the Japan Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Federation.
6 minutes past. Now 6 minutes past.
That same year, Royce Gracie defeated Ichihara Inoki, a full-contact karate practitioner who had previously beaten a Myanmar Lethwei fighter at UFC 2. In 1996, Royler Gracie, another of the Gracie brothers, came to Japan and defeated top Shuto MMA fighter Asahi Noboru. That same year, Pedro Otavio of Luta Livre, often confused in Japan with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, faced Ohara Manabu, a practitioner of the ancient Japanese martial art Koppo, but Ohara was defeated. This is Koppo. According to Morihei of Koppo, who served as the referee, it is a uniquely Japanese kenpo said to have been passed down for more than 1,300 years. Koppo has weak historical substantiation, and it has often been ridiculed due to its distinctive techniques and its repeated reforms of its technical system. Unlike many other martial arts that avoid MMA by retreating into the safe refuge of mystique, claiming reasons such as prohibitions against interstyle matches, private fights, or fighting for money, Koppo chose not to take that path. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu became the great nemesis of Japanese martial arts, ushering in a golden age of interstyle competition. Japanese fight fans became intensely focused on one question: who or which martial art could defeat Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? Meanwhile, in K1, which aimed to determine the strongest striker, fighters initially struggled to adapt to punches to the face. However, Andy Hug of Switzerland, runner-up in the 4th Kyokushin World Tournament, won the 1996 K1 tournament. After tuning his skills from full-contact karate at Sedokai-kan for kickboxing rules, he transitioned from karateka to kickboxer. The following year, 1997, reigning Kyokushin world champion Francisco Filho of Brazil entered K1 for the first time. With virtually no adaptation, he knocked out the defending champion kickboxer Andy Hug in one round, while maintaining his Kyokushin style.
And while other Kyokushin heavyweights were still celebrating the ban on face punching, Francisco once again utilizing Hug's name as a stepping stone.
That same year, Nobuhiko Takada, trained in the legitimate fight style of professional wrestling under the lineage of Antonio Inoki, faced Rickson Gracie at the new promotion Pride and was soundly defeated. This result came as a tremendous shock to fans who had firmly believed that UWF, which promoted a legitimate shoot-style approach to professional wrestling at the time, represented true real combat, and that its top fighters were the strongest among all martial arts. At the same event, however, Shoji Akira of Wajutsu Kishukai achieved a remarkable draw against Royler Gracie. Former Yokozuna sumo wrestlers and top Kyokushin fighters such as Kurosawa Hiroki, Willie Williams had been expelled from Kyokushin shortly before his match with Inoki, also stepped into the ring. Yet to me, both matches appeared closer to shoot-style pro wrestling than pure no-holds-barred competition. Pride itself seemed undecided as to whether it would be a fully legitimate competition or an event with strong pro wrestling elements. Ring-based MMA promotion Pride would later grow into a massive organization rivaling the cage-based UFC. Japanese combat sports evolved along two axes, K1 and Pride, with repeated interstyle clashes driving growth. However, since many Japanese martial arts organizations prohibited participation in interstyle matches, active competitors often had to retire from their primary sport and leave their organizations before competing. As a result, it was rare to see athletes from Sumo, Judo, or Karate enter Pride or K1 in their competitive prime. In the same year, UFC events arrived in Japan. Sakuraba Kazushi, trained under Takada Nobuhiko's lineage, defeated Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu fighter Marcus Conan Silveira, achieving a major upset. Before professional wrestling, Sakuraba had been an amateur wrestler. Since Kimura Masahiko, The one who defeated Gracie Jiu-Jitsu as a Japanese was neither from karate, judo, nor sumo, but Sakuraba Kazushi, a mid-level fighter from UWF. After the match, he left the famous words, "Pro wrestlers are actually strong." Among the cornermen rushing toward Sakuraba, one could be seen Takada Nobuhiko, who had previously been defeated by Rickson. From Pride 2 onward, Sakuraba became central to the promotion. He drew with Alan Goes and then defeated a succession of elite fighters, including Vitor Belfort, Ebenezer Fontes Braga, Royler Gracie, and Royce Gracie. In the end, the towel was thrown in by Rorion Gracie. In the heavyweight division, Mark Kerr, the reigning UFC champion known in Japan as the strongest primate on earth, was defeated by Fujita Kazuyuki, an amateur wrestling-based fighter and disciple of Antonio Inoki from New Japan Pro Wrestling. Both Sakuraba Kazushi and Fujita Kazuyuki were pro wrestlers rooted not in traditional Japanese Budo, but in amateur wrestling. They became heroes of the Japanese fight world, and MMA exploded in popularity across Japan. From that point on, MMA rapidly spread throughout Japan. The direct roots of early Japanese MMA can perhaps be traced to three main lineages. The Judo lineage of Maeda Mitsuyo and Kimura Masahiko, the professional wrestling lineage of Rikidozen and Antonio Inoki, and the full-contact karate lineage of Mazoyama. From this point on, MMA as a sport rapidly spread throughout Japan, and fighters from various martial arts with a strong emphasis on real combat began adapting and tuning their techniques specifically for MMA competition. Thank you very much for watching until the end. We will consider this the first part of Japan's history of Interstyle matches. If the video receives a high number of likes, we will begin working on the second part. We also introduce a variety of other themed topics based on Japanese language sources, covering niche aspects of Japanese martial arts culture and lesser-known stories that have rarely been translated into English. If you are interested, please be sure to like and subscribe. You can purchase the guidebook to martial arts historical sites in Tokyo and its surrounding areas, places not found in standard guidebooks, through the link in the description. In addition to historical sites, the book also introduces martial arts equipment shops and information on major annual Japanese martial arts demonstration events. If you're interested, please be sure to check it out.
Japan B is a channel that randomly shares information about lesser-known aspects of Japanese culture, spanning across various genres.